As you're training to become a better sport climber, it's going to eventually be essential for you to do some high volume training. Not only for physical reasons, but also to learn how to better react and manage being pumped, powered down, and fatigued. And in many cases, the first thing to go is skin. So let's talk about some of the things you can do to prepare, reduce the loss of, and repair your skin. I'm Chris Hampton. You're watching Tape Tips from Power Company Climbing. Let's get into it. Now, just a quick heads up here, this video is a part of our Red River Trip Prep resource library. And if you're interested in learning more about our trip prep training plans currently available for Wild Iris, 10 Sleep, and now Red River Gorge with Rifle, Waco Tanks, and Chattanooga Bouldering next up in the queue, then you can find that info right there in the description below. Okay, let's start where you should be starting, and that's with prevention. There's one main way to keep your skin healthy both going into your training block and during your training block, as well as during your climbing season. And it's a fairly simple method, but I still hear climbers claiming the opposite is true. And that's simply that you should be keeping your skin clean and moisturized anytime you're not climbing. Throughout the day, immediately after climbing sessions, before going to bed, moisturize. That's how your skin stays healthy and how it heals itself. It keeps it more flexible and pliable, and you want it to be pliable to settle into those variations in holds and help you hold them. And now, as far as moisturizers go, we aren't looking for something really oily. A lot of these products leave your skin feeling greasy and oily. I'm just not a fan of that. I prefer the products from Rhino Skin Solutions, made by climbers specifically for climbers. And in this case, especially with endurance training, Repair is my daily go-to for moisturizing. Now, if you're getting close to the training block, or even a trip where you want your skin to harden a bit, using something like Rhino Performance at night, which is essentially a moisturizer that hardens your skin as a bit of a bonus, that can be a good thing. But you don't want your skin to get too hard. We want it to stay pliable and flexible. It can become brittle and glassy if it gets too hard. So we have to keep moisturizer in the mix. Performance at night and then Repair during the day is a good option. And if you have a job where you wash your hands often and they get dry really easily, keep that moisturizer handy at work as well. Use it every time you wash. Now, I know that mentioning hardened skin is a Pandora's box. We all think we want it. So let's talk a little bit about it. If you know that you have thin skin that gets beat up easily, it might make sense to try to toughen up the skin a bit. And there are a few ways we can do this. Some chemical, some mechanical. And the popular chemical methods are going to be antihydral or Rhino's tip juice. And these are really easy to overdo. I've seen some real skin disasters as a result, like season-ending or trip-ending skin disasters. A few applications of these things go a long way, and I like to put them just on the tips, the pads of the fingers, not in the creases. I used a tube of antihydral for probably 5 or 6 years, and still had a bunch of it left before I threw it out. So you don't need nearly as much as you think you do. A little goes a long way. Now, mechanically is certainly the safer way. Ultimately, you're training your skin. You're giving it a stimulus that asks it to grow back thicker to withstand that stimulus. And climbing on rough holds can do it if you don't take it too far and destroy your skin. So if you're getting outside, that might be enough. But maybe the best way, particularly if you aren't yet spending a lot of time outside during your training block, is to hang on rough, uneven holds. And you don't necessarily have to do your finger training on them per se, but a rough hold will help give your skin input that tells it to grow thicker. And the Skin Farmers by Petraholds are a really nice version of this type of product. And they aren't going to sand off your skin like new gym holds do. Speaking of new gym holds, commercial gyms, if you can avoid climbing on the newest holds in the gym, then do that. I know you're not going to be able to avoid it all the time, but it's going to save your skin. There's a reason that every World Cup climber's hands are wrecked after a competition, because new holds are just too gritty. If you're training mostly on your home wall, I would sand down a lot of the holds, especially the jugs. For your endurance sessions, it's going to make them way more pleasant. Your skin will last way longer, and you'll thank me. I promise. Now, if you can't avoid climbing on rough holds, especially at the volume that you'll be doing while endurance training, then prophylactic taping might be your best friend, especially for the jug rash that you'll get climbing and resting on big, gritty grips. And for that, I prefer our circuit tape for several reasons. Most of all, though, is that it's breathable. So it won't leave your skin all soft and white like adhesive tape does, and then your skin's going to rip immediately when you start climbing again. And it doesn't stick to your skin, but to itself, so you can put it on over chalky hands with no problem at all. And now you can't prevent all of the wear and tear, so you're going to have to do some repairs along the way. And for thin skin, like I already said, keep moisturizing anytime you aren't climbing. And if you're getting calluses, which you will, sand them down. I'm always surprised that climbers think they want these big, hard, thick calluses. But these are exactly how flappers happen. The skin that tears is that hardened skin on top of softer skin. And you can mostly avoid flappers if you keep the calluses sanded down and moisturized. I think I've had two flappers in the last decade, and I climb a fair amount. But if you do get a flapper or a split or a tear, then we can follow some really basic steps and take care of them quickly. First, cut the flapper off. Trim the edges of the split or tear. And for this, I like our detail clipper from our Climbers Clipper set. It's a sharp, straight edge rather than that curved edge, so it's easier to get the dead or dying skin out of there without going too deep like we often do with the corners of these curved clippers. Then sand those edges down so that they're beveled a bit inward toward the split. That way they won't catch on something and continue tearing. And for this, and for sanding calluses, I prefer our finger file. It's got several rounded edges, as well as a sharp edge, so you can work as broad or as detailed as you need to get your skin in good condition. And now, if you're still climbing, tape it up. But when you're finished, you guessed it, clean it well and moisturize it. Something like Tegaderm, which is a dressing that keeps out the dirt and germs, but lets it breathe while keeping it moisturized, is best to cover it up. And if you don't have that, circuit tape will do the job in a pinch. It's not great, it's not as good as Tegaderm, but it will work. So keeping it moisturized but getting air to it is going to help grow new skin more quickly. Now, pro tip here, if you're getting those little smiley splits that happen in the pads or in the creases of your finger, they happen to me almost every winter, once or twice, because it's dry heat and I'm climbing a lot and chalky and drying my hands even more. So if you're getting those, you have to let them fully rip open before trying to repair them, or they're going to continue ripping. So what I do when I get one, I'll do a series of hangs just on an edge that sort of forces it to rip a little more. And once that stops, then I go through the same series of steps that I go through when I'm repairing any kind of split or tear or a flapper. Clean the hands, trim those edges, sand it and bevel it down, moisturize it. Sometimes I even pack it with the Rhino split stick, and then I cover it, and in a couple of days it's healed and ready to climb on again. Often ready to climb on the next day, fully healed in 2 or 3 days. Now you can also do some prevention while you're climbing, just by being in control. Now obviously this isn't always possible, but less slipping and sliding around on holds, especially the gritty ones, will do less damage and keep your skin in better condition. And particularly when endurance training, since it's unlikely you're doing a ton of climbing that forces you too far out of control, then being a little more careful isn't a bad thing. Obviously, there are times when you want to go a muerte and be lunging and latching for holds. Keep that to a minimum. Be in control when you can be. And last, but certainly not least, when endurance is the main factor in your climbing and your training, you really need to consider how much you're resting. If your skin and your body are getting wrecked, then by all means, take a rest day. Take an extra rest day, 2 extra rest days, whatever you need. It's not a bad thing. It's quite the opposite in most cases. If you let your body and your skin heal and adapt, they'll both come back stronger. Trust me. All right, you'll find all of these products at the link in the description below, including our trip prep training plans. This one is for our Red River Gorge. We've got a bunch of areas already out and ready for you. If you've got trips planned, check those out. Also, hit that subscribe and that notification bell so you don't miss the next episode of Tape Tips. All right, we'll see you then.